Okay, welcome to the video. So obviously on the wireless LAN controller, and this is the Cisco page, it obviously changes over time, but this is your main go-to place for information. I'm going to look at the GUI, which is the only thing included in the CCNA syllabus. Do some configuration of interfaces, telnets, TACAX, radius, SSH. We'll create two wireless LANs with different security settings and quality of service. Now you can just watch this video, or if you've managed to get access to the wireless LAN controller software, you can obviously follow along and configure it, or do your own configurations, or for the CCNA, just explore the different parts of the configuration menus. Now I've got the wireless LAN controller running in GNS3. I've got a management IP that you can see in the diagram of 10.10.10.1. Covered in the earlier video the installation. Now we are using our browser to access the wireless LAN controller GUI. HTTPS, and then obviously your management IP address. Now I'm presuming you've done the basic Cisco reading and configuration, so you should know that the host would need to be in the same subnet in order to reach the management IP. The earlier video we configured all the logins and other parameters for the WLC. So refer back to that if you need to refresh or if you haven't seen it yet. So this is our main page, our summary page. And bear in mind this does change over time, so don't worry too much if the layout doesn't exactly match mine. Per release they can obviously change how things are laid out. There are wireless networks, access points, rogue access points, interfaces, and so on. You would have some graphical data here, but we haven't done any configurations yet, so don't worry too much about that area. As your configurations go along, you will obviously see different things displayed here. Down here you can see applications and the connected clients. Your top wireless LANs will be down here. Next you can see the summary of your access points, connected clients and wireless, your client capabilities, different tables shown here, and the window will show you the access point performance graphs. So there's obviously a lot more will be going on a live network or even on a test network that you configure. And there's some best practices, so always worth looking at this part also. Your infrastructure, security, RF management, and so on. So these are all the where your recommendations would be shown and any particular needs for your network. If you go to the Advanced tab, you'll see a Settings button, and on the landing page there'll be two options. Number one is a dashboard, the summary here. A monitor summary is a page you can click on the advanced part, and that page will come up first. So it just depends what your preference is. So system information is name, model, serial number, the software version that you're running, a brief summary about this wireless LAN controller, so this is your monitoring page here. This is where you can will be doing most of your configurations. You can see at the top we've got multiple tabs like monitor, wireless LANs, the controller, the wireless security, and you've got some help and feedback there. Obviously, if you want to refresh the page or log out, you can do in the top right and save any changes. And then you go back home if you wish. It could look slightly different in Packet Tracer if I remember rightly. So you can have a look at the options that are on each tab as you press on it. Obviously, as with any GUI, you get different options and sub-options. So you can see how many access points are supported, the management IP, service port IP. It's important to note the software version that you're running. Each one has its own release notes. The time and data number of networks which are enabled or not enabled, and your memory usage. Below that, you've got the access point summary, so you can see the access points connected to this network. And you've got the client summary tab. So this is a more detailed summary page of this wireless LAN controller. You've got a rogue summary. If you want to time out the session after a few seconds, you can use this option here. Many of these will be grayed out on the Packet Tracer version. Any traps you can see. Traps you've enabled for this controller, and on the left you've got the access point button. So you can see what's connected here. Not a lot going on. You can see the 5 GHz supported access points, 2.4 access points. These will be listed separately if you so wish. And then we go to the statistics of the controller, like packets received, broadcasted, unicasted. It's very feature rich, as you can see. The access point join stats, when the access point will be joining the network, how many ports a controller has, and this is a virtual wireless LAN controller software, so we've only got one port for the management. So physical mode, auto, full duplex, working on gigabit speed. Also view the details here. Radio servers, mobility stats, IPv6, and binding counters. You've got the preferred mode and roaming. CDP, I'm sure you're familiar with, Cisco Discovery Protocol. This would only work, or would only see other devices that are Cisco devices, because CDP is Cisco proprietary. Showing the neighbor details here and the neighbors of the access points. Traffic metrics. So these are the other Wi-Fi devices which our access points will be detecting. There's no clients connected right now, so you're not going to see much there. Multicasts, applications, local profiling. So this is your monitor tab. This is the kind of main place where you will be spending your time configuring, supporting, just checking over. If you go to the WLANs tab, all your configured wireless LANs will be here. Be configuring these later on in the video. In the advanced, you can create access point groups if you so wish. Don't think that's a CCNA topic. I'll have to revert back to the syllabus to confirm. A controller tells you all the general information about the controller, the name, system name. A few options you can enable or disable or set parameters according to your specific network needs. And you've got the icons. If you've got icons downloaded here, it'll be shown on the inventory. It will show you the model, the serial number, MAC address, which is the physical address. This information is required whenever you install any licenses on this particular box. You would require the model number and the serial number to generate any licenses from the Cisco website. You've got the interfaces here, and so in switching you'd have SVIs, switch virtual interfaces. We've got 3 interfaces here. There's a service port which is created by default. You've got the virtual interface, guest connectivity, when a guest is coming from a guest portal. You can see the management IP address at the top there, which should look familiar. This is how we first connected to our device. So untagged, we haven't added any VLAN, so you won't see any tags. Here you can group interfaces, IP network routes, mobility management. If there's other controllers, we can group them here. And then there's the physical ports of this controller. There's only one port showing link up. NTP is network time protocol. If you want, you can add NTP servers just here. CDP, which we mentioned before, you can actually disable it if you wanted to for security or other reasons. Any tunneling profiles, IPv6, advanced, you can set the DHCP settings here. This is the controller tab finished, so we've gone over to the wireless now. Access points are shown on the left. If you've got access points connected, you would see them here. Again, mentioned this before, you can separate into 5 or 2.4 gigahertz, or you can see all. You've got the advanced section, so RF management, load balancing, quality of service. That's actually mentioned in the syllabus, so it's worth spending some time on that tab and seeing the options, because you could well have a question. ACLs, 802.11a and AC, these are the 5 gigahertz standards. This is your global parameters here. If you uncheck the box, it means that 5 gigahertz is totally disabled. Obviously, any changes you make, you need to click on the apply buttons. If you unchecked it, then the 5 gigahertz frequency wouldn't be available. If you come to the network and uncheck this box, you'll apply settings to the 2.4 gigahertz frequency, and you could disable this also for your network. Select your country. Important you do actually get the right settings here. Depending on what you click, you'll have different settings enabled. You do need to select the same country that you bought the access points from, or the regulatory domain. If you got the wrong country selected, then the chances are the wireless LAN controller won't work correctly with your access points. You've got pre-configured settings here. It's important you make a note of bronze, silver, gold, platinum, what you get with each setting. By default, every wireless LAN has silver QoS selected. If you think there's video traffic, then you would need to change your settings, obviously. If it's mainly voice, then you can also set your set the correct configuration, QoS profile. If it's just background applications, then you can see we've got a setting which is bronze. On the security tab, you've got AAA, which is a part of the CCNA syllabus now. This is where you can set the max local database entries. This is the local database of this wireless LAN controller. Shown here, the number of entries already used is 1 because we've our admin account created. For radius, you can set the parameters for authentication, accounting, and other radius related stuff. If you've got a TACAC server, then you'd put all of these settings here. If you want to use the vendor neutral version of CDP, back filtering is done here. If you've got any disabled clients manually or dynamically, it would be shown here. And you can see the user login policies. You can set this if you've got one connection to the WAN controller with one account and no one else can use it at the time. Obviously, this all depends on your local security policies. Which certificates you're going to accept or not can be enabled here. And by default, you've got the accept manufacturers install certificate. Password policy is obviously very important, and it's a cornerstone of the exam syllabus now. So note what options you do have. Obviously, you can make it harder or easier. Minimum length if you require uppercase or lowercase or no lowercase. You can select all of the relevant options here. These are for the local management users and access points. And for SNMP v3 users for the local EAP authentication parameters, certificates, and you can set a priority order. Switches and routers, you can create access lists here if you need to block or give access to specific users or devices. don't think that's covered in the CCNA syllabus. It probably is in the CCNP. Your wireless protection policies just here. You can see rogue settings, general, etc. So that relates back to this part of your main summary page. You can set different policies and how the controller and access points behave in the case of detection. Web authentication used for guest authentication. You can use an internal page or a customized downloaded page. This depends on your company policies and if you've got any particular branding or other requirements. By default, you'll see a page like this, which you can obviously tailor to your particular requirements. Here you can set various policies to apply on the controller. Here you can see certificates installed, CA and ID certificates and others. This is the security tab all done. We'll go over to management now. So you've got the summary and then obviously SNMP. By default, version 1 is disabled, version 2C is enabled, version 3 enabled. Just check documentation if you've got changes on your particular version. We can see we've got HTTPS access to our management. This is where you could change it if you so wished. When we first configure our WLC, if you remember from the other video, it's HTTP. By default, Telnet's disabled, which makes sense. SSH is enabled, and management via wireless disabled. So on the left, you've got the detailed configuration. These are the generic parameters. If you want to disable, enable, version 2C or 3, here's where you would do it. You can create SNMP version 3 users here, and the communities, enable or disable trap controls, and then your logs. You can enable or disable Telnet. You can just do a check here. You can access the device via PuTTY or secure SRT or TRT, I can't recall now, sorry. Default is 9600 baud rate. You can configure different settings if you so wish. Just important you make a note here. Local management users are here. So this is for your active CLI sessions to this WLC. Your logs, if you've got a syslog server on your network, you can set the IP address to send your login messages, and then obviously you can interrogate that server later. Check your default settings. You can see it's unticked by default, but you can tick whether or not you want to be accessible from wireless clients. CMX is a product, a Cisco product you can add here. Software activation and your license page. And you can add more licenses here. Tech support is system resource information, controller crashes. You've also got the commands tab. Your downloaded file options means you can download a file to this controller. You would use it to upgrade or downgrade or add different iOSs to this WLC. Select this code option if you're downloading some configuration files. There's so many options here, obviously, and you can go through all the different parameters and subparameters. You could download it by TFTP. FTP is the easiest way probably, or you can just click on browse, select your iOS, and it will be downloaded onto the controller. Next time it reboots, it would use that iOS. You can downgrade or download your configuration, login banner and custom web authentication. There's other options to download here, and sometimes there's confusion. Upload file means upload file from the controller to the TFTP or FTP. You can do a backup of your configuration. You just select the configuration and then the IP address or the path name. This is if you've got TFTP installed on your network. You can reboot the controller from here, restart it. You can have two images, by the way, so you can have two options, a primary and a secondary. You can run a primary or a backup image. You can reboot, reset your WLC to factory settings, set the time and date, which is important, a login banner if you want somebody to see a message when they log in. So this is the window you'd use when you first hit this. You've got help and feedback tabs. Obviously these aren't for configurations though. And you can see all the various parameters and things that you need to click on. For example, SNMP, add in SNMP users, read-write access, all covered in the guide. You can dip in as and when you need it, or start from the top and just work your way through all of the different settings and parameters. Feedback will take you to the Cisco website. Alright, so we've done a overview. You can watch now, or you can follow along, or just watch now and then do it later. We'll do some configurations. These aren't suggested configurations, it's just basically playing with a few of the different settings so you can see how they work. Do check the latest version of the CCNA syllabus before you take the exam. So I've clicked on port number 1, which is all I've got. You could enable or disable it. Set your status and duplex, physical mode. You can enable or disable traps. Go to the interfaces. This is where you can configure your SVIs or the VLANs. You can set the port as an access or trunk port. We'll create 2 interfaces just for fun. So we'll have interfaces attached to these wireless LANs. So you can suppose you've got VLAN ID 101, and now you've got to give the physical information, starting with the ports. We'll configure number 1. Say you've attached a cable through that port already, and we'll add a network mask, gateway 192.168.101.254. You can have DHCP server for this VLAN. You do get a warning, so just make sure you're happy with what you've done. Alright, so we've created our interface, set it to VLAN identifier. Traffic will be going to the physical port 1. It's actually the only port in this wireless LAN controller. You've got a trunk port this side, so you need to set the other side to trunk in also. For the port, you can listen here and on your controller, but we'll create another interface. Let's say the director's VLAN ID 102 192.168.102.1. We'll add a gateway address. So you need an IP address for this interface, and you'll get the warning again. So now you've got 2 interfaces created. directors and employee. Let's go to the Management tab on the top. Click on HTTP and HTTPS. You can see HTTP is disabled. So if you try and HTTP to the device, the wireless LAN controller, you won't get a response. Okay, just for fun, just to play with the settings, we'll enable it, apply, and then we'll connect again using HTTP. You could get security warnings, in fact you probably will, but you'll still be presented with the login screen. For Telnet or SSH, got some simple configurations you can add. Just make a note of what's enabled by default and disabled. You can see there. I'll do a simple PuTTY connection. Got SSH configured. And you'll be prompted at a command line interface for the username and password that you created earlier in the other video. You're not tested on command lines for CCNA. Not sure about CCNP. You can check the syllabus, I'm sure. So tried through insecure protocol, and you can see nothing's happening on the window. So we'll close that down, allow new SSH session, and Telnet's allowed also. And we're back to the command prompt. Whole bunch of security settings you can configure. We want to authenticate our users, so we could add a IP address for our Radius server. This is the shared secret, so you need the IP address of the server and the shared secret. Click on apply. So we've created our server IP. You can add the server IP address for your TACACS here if you're using TACACS. So those are just a few basic settings. Quite a few of these are available on Packet Tracer. This is a live version of the wireless controller software, so I've got a lot more. What we'll do is just do some creating wireless LANs and add some security and QoS. So we'll have a employee SSID and you need to work out if it's going to be the same name exactly broadcast. So in this instance I'm going to have the same name, but it's all going to be in capitals, and then you can apply. Here you can set your security, WPA, WPA2. You've got different versions. You can tick and then untick whichever boxes you want to use or enable. This is if you want to authenticate clients and connect into this device. For AA servers, you can add the IP. If one server isn't reachable, you could have a second server, and so on. And we can optimize for voice, video, best effort, or background with the matching profiles. Again, do make a note of these names and what service they're configured for. So we've got silver, best effort here. We've configured a different setting. Alright, so you can apply whatever settings, obviously change them later, tweak them, add or remove whatever you so wish. Well, there's no clients at the moment, so putting these settings in doesn't really matter. You can set different security settings per wireless LAN. So for the next one, we could have it for directors. If you go to the original one, you can see the interfaces for VLAN 101. Again, you need to apply and then accept the notification that comes up. So we'll go to another creation now for a wireless LAN, directors, and then the SSID will have all in capitals. Then you'll get to configure some more settings. Decide what interface it wants to go into for our VLAN. Your security, WPA, WPA2 we had earlier. You've obviously got to have matching settings in your access point. So if you wanted to challenge for a password, click on pre-shared key, and you just need to give the pre-shared key. So you can't see it, I just type Cisco 123 in lowercase. So cross profile for the directors if you so wish. Maybe they're using video conferences or even streaming videos. So this wireless LAN is optimized for video traffic on that cross profile. You've seen the security settings with pre-shared keys. We've added the password for PSK. You click apply. That's all you'll need to create your next wireless LAN. And when you connect your access points, this is where you will see your connections. I've done some labs in Packet Tracer because it's a lot easier to just drag devices on. See, we've got two different security policies, only purely for us to test the different settings. You would provide the key on the access points, for example, Cisco 123. You can also configure your DHCP. So just a little tour. Please have a play, and thanks for watching.